8:47 in the morning. December 21st, 1939. The temperature is minus 40 degrees at the Kollaa River in eastern Finland. A Soviet patrol of 12 men moves through the tree line, with boots crunching furiously in packed snow. They are scanning the white tree line ahead, but they see and hear nothing. Then, suddenly, one of them drops, and another. By the time the third man hit the ground, the remaining 9 were already running. But there was no direction to run, and no enemy to find. Little did they know that the shots had come from a Finnish farmer called Simo Häyhä, and not one of them ever saw him coming. What happens next will make this man the most feared soldier in the history of modern warfare. Simo Häyhä was born on December 17, 1905, in the small Finnish hamlet of Kiskinen, in a region called Rautjärvi. Rautjärvi is a quiet place, and save for its dense forest and cold winters, the region doesn't have much else going on. Simo's father was a farmer, and his mother a housewife. Simo grew up working the land, skiing the forests, and hunting game. By the time he was a teenager, he could bring down a bird in full flight from 150 meters with iron sights. Simo did the brave thing of joining the Finnish Civil Guard at 17 and spent the next 16 years refining what he already knew how to do, better than most men alive: shoot. By 1939, he was 33 years old. He wasn't particularly using his shooting skill, except for when he went hunting. On days when he wasn't doing his main job, which was farming, he was a man with no enemies and no particular need for glory. That is, until the Soviets crossed the border. On November 30th, 1939, the Soviet Union launched a full-scale invasion of Finland. The Red Army came with 500,000 men, 6,000 tanks, and 3,800 aircraft. Finland had roughly 300,000 soldiers, no tanks to speak of, a handful of planes, and terrain that the Soviets, frankly, did not respect. Soviet commanders assumed that the entire invasion would take 11 days, or maybe even less. Finland was a small country, and the Soviets' army numbers were absurd. It was roughly 4 Soviet soldiers for every 1 Finn on the front line, but the math hadn't accounted for the forest. Soviet infantry moved in columns. They were predictable, loud, and slow through the snow. Their doctrine was designed for open battlefields where they could easily use mass firepower, armored support, and sweeping advances. In the dense Finnish pine forests, none of that worked. Tanks got stuck, columns got separated, and communication broke down. Finnish soldiers, on the other hand, knew the terrain, the way a man knows his own backyard. They moved on skis. They knew every tree line, every frozen lake, and every shadow the forest cast. At first light, in the first weeks of the war, the losses on the Finnish side mounted fast. The men that died were men Simo had trained with, men from Rautjärvi, with names he recognized. The Kollaa front, where Simo's unit, the 6th Battalion of Infantry Regiment 34, was positioned, was holding back Soviet forces. That outnumbered them at nearly 6-1. One Finnish sniper, well-positioned, could occupy an entire Soviet company and could save dozens of men on his own side just by being invisible and impossible to predict. But here's where things get unusual. Simo Häyhä refused the telescopic sight. That was usually issued to Finnish snipers. Still, Simo deliberately rejected it. His reason was that a telescopic sight raises your head higher above the snow line. A raised head is a visible head in a snowy landscape where everything is basically. You couldn't really maneuver concealment with that sort of weapon. To him, an extra 2 inches of exposure was an unacceptable risk. So instead, he used an M2830 rifle with iron sights, which was the same standard infantry model he had owned before the war. He also developed a specific technique for operating in extreme cold. Each night, before settling into position, he packed snow into the ground in front of his muzzle. and poured water over it. The snow froze solid overnight. When he fired, the muzzle blast had no loose snow to disturb and no small white cloud rising in the frozen air. To give away his exact location, he kept his mouth closed when exhaling, so his breath wouldn't rise as steam above the snow line. He wore a white snowsuit over his uniform. He memorized the terrain from maps and personal reconnaissance, because during the war, maps were scarce, and he couldn't rely on having one in the field. The Soviets noticed the kills early. Patrols were going out and not coming back, or coming back short, and it was always from the same sector, with no explanation, no witness, and no clear point of origin. By January 1940, Simo Häyhä had over 200 confirmed kills. The Soviet command sent dedicated counter-sniper teams into the area, but none of them found him. They were found by him first. They tried artillery, indirect mortar fire, and even concentrated on sectors. Where the kills had clustered, one shell landed close enough to shred the back of his greatcoat. He walked away with a minor scratch and relocated before the next barrage. They tried sending larger units to sweep the area, but then he would move and ski to a new position, sometimes several hundred meters in under an hour, and resume firing from a completely different angle. On his best single day, he killed 25 Soviet soldiers. Over 98 days of active combat, Simo Häyhä accumulated at least 505 confirmed kills. With his rifle alone, some estimates place the full figure, including kills with a Suomi KP-31 submachine gun during close engagements, at closer to 569. To put that in perspective, researchers studying the Vietnam War calculated that over 25,000 rifle-caliber shots were fired per confirmed combat kill. For Häyhä's nearly 600 kills, an equivalent force would have needed over 13 million bullets. He used one per man the entire Winter War, which the world expected Finland to lose in days, lasted 105 days. Finland ultimately ceded territory in the armistice, but the Soviets paid an extraordinary cost, with an estimated 125,000 to 170,000 dead against roughly 25,000 Finnish losses. On March 6, 1940, in the forests of Ulisma in the Kollaa region, a Soviet soldier's bullet found Simo Häyhä. It was an explosive round that hit him in the jaw and left the left side of his face destroyed. He fell into a coma and did not wake up for 7 days. When he opened his eyes, the armistice had already been signed. The war was over. He went back to Rautjärvi and back to farming. The surgeon spent years working on his jaw, and he received 26 operations in total. His speech was never fully restored. He lived alone until 2001, when he moved into the Kaimi Institute for Disabled Veterans. He died on April 1, 2002.